What is going on, guys? So I know at least one person noticed in some B-roll that I shot for a video I made a few weeks back that I have indeed purchased a Threadripper CPU. So this is going to be my new rig that I'm going to use for video editing, virtualization, pretty much everything, maybe a little bit of gaming, even though you generally don't really want a Threadripper for gaming. You tend to want a higher clock speed versus, well, a shitload of cores, because I don't think there's any games out there that can really utilize a 32-core CPU. So this is the, if I can open it up. So this is the 3970X. So that is 32-core, 64-thread CPU. And this motherboard I got for it, I actually managed to get both of these as a bundle. So luckily I was able to pay a little bit below MSRP for used parts, because if you look at the Threadrippers right now, they're usually marked up. So I was able to get both of these for I think about $3,000, a little bit less than that. This is a Asus ROG Zenith 2 Extreme Alpha, and it is a gaming motherboard, even though, like I said, you'd probably be better off with something other than a Threadripper for gaming. And yeah, I'm just going to put it together. I've got some RAM here, so this is like, I think 128 gigabytes in total of some Corsair RAM. And for a graphics card, so this is kind of hilarious. I don't really have the real graphics card that's going to go in here, but with a Threadripper, it doesn't have integrated graphics. So you do need to have some kind of graphics card in order to get a display. So I was able to get this old, let's see, I think this is a, yeah, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but this is a GT 730 with 2 gigabytes of DDR3 video memory. So yeah, this is a super ancient card. Obviously, you're not going to want to do any gaming on that either, but like I said, it's just to test it and make sure everything works. So yeah, let's go ahead and start putting this thing together. So take our CPU out, and we'll just slide this out. There's a little like felt pad behind it so that you don't end up touching any of the pins. Well, actually, I think it's you don't have pins on the CPU, you have the pins on the actual socket on the motherboard. So in order to put this in, this I guess confuses some people which way the CPU actually goes in. So you should be able to see right here that there's this little arrow pointing on this orange case here, and then you have the same thing on the motherboard. It might be kind of hard to show it, but whoop, right there, you've got the same arrow. So you just got to make sure that those line up, and then that's how you know that you're putting it in the right way. And it actually slides into this bracket here. So we'll go ahead and put that in, set this cover down. Should slide in just like that. There we go. I can go down. All right, and then we're going to put this cover over. So on here, there is a certain way to do it. I'll try to zoom in so that maybe you guys can see. So it says close 1, 2, 3. So you have to do these screws in order 1, 2, 3, and then of course open it 3, 2, 1 in the opposite direction. Now to close this mounting bracket, you're going to want to use the screwdriver that comes with your Threadripper. So you get a lot of torque with this. That's exactly what you want. So we'll go ahead and close this over it. And then first, we Screw in number 1. It's nice and tight. Number 2. And then finally number 3. And I think I see little specks of dust. We'll just wipe that off. You really don't want to get any of that mixing in with your thermal compound, because the thing about these Threadrippers is they tend to run a little bit warm. I mean, it is a 32 core CPU after all. Now, the cooling solution I have, I'm not going to put it on right away, but I've got this air cooler from Noctua. So this is the NHU14S, meant for the TR4 socket. Now, with the Threadrippers, technically AMD does not recommend you use an air cooler. They only officially recommend that you use liquid coolers, but personally, I don't really like messing around with liquid coolers. I think that they tend to be a little bit overkill. Now, don't get me wrong, if I overclock this, definitely going to use a liquid cooler. But this air cooler should work. In fact, I've actually upgraded it a little bit, because normally it only comes with this fan, but I actually ordered an additional fan that I kind of jerry-rigged together a little bit to fit on it. It's a little bit ghetto, but it works. You'll see. I was kind of surprised that they only sent one fan, because I have, I forget which model it is, but I have a Noctua fan CPU cooler inside of my current rig, and that one came with 2 fans. So that seems a little bit weird to me that Noctua thought it's fine to, or that Noctua thought it's necessary to have 2 fans to cool, I think that's a 4790K, but only 1 fan is necessary to cool a 3790 or 3970X. Whatever, you know, they do a whole lot of experiments. They probably know better than me, but I don't see how 2 fans can possibly be worse than 1. Let's actually do the storage first, because that's a little bit interesting too. So it always blows my mind how much technology just improves. This is actually the first NVMe drive that I've personally used. I've installed them for people many times before when I was working at Geek Squad. But yeah, this is a Samsung 970 Evo Plus, so it is a PCI Gen 3 SSD. It's not Gen 4, but I don't think that there's really a whole lot of Gen 4 SSDs out there that can really take advantage of the speed of the new spec. But yeah, 2 terabytes, and it's like the size of a stick of gum. Pretty crazy. Back when I built my last rig with the 4790K right after high school, the best technology was solid state drives, things like this. You can see, obviously, this is a whole lot smaller than that. Now, this, I think that there's some spots to mount it. Like, I think if you unscrew this, there might be some spaces for it, but I've got this riser card that came with it. I wasn't sure what this was when I first got it. So you can actually put 2 NVMe drives inside of here, and then it just goes right here in this slot that says DIMM2. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and put it in there, and I use a screwdriver to open it. I can already tell that this shiny spot here is going to annoy the crap out of me. It's going to get fingerprints on it, and it's just, ugh. That's the only thing I don't like about these gaming motherboards, is that they put so much into the aesthetic of their motherboard. Like, this thing's got, as you'll see when I power it on, RGB lights and all that crap, you know, shiny metal finishes. I don't need all of that. This is a workstation. I mean, don't get me wrong, maybe I'll do some gaming on it. Maybe I'll create a Windows VM and then pass through some of the CPU and also pass through a graphics card to it. Once graphics cards are cheap enough. I mean, I was able to afford this which, by the way, is mostly the doing of you guys. Everybody who watches the channel and shares with people, especially sharing out on social media, that helps get a lot of views. So I really do appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. You were able to help me upgrade my 10-year-old computer. All right, so yeah, I gotta take that screw out too. So now touch that part. Then the NVMe drive should go in. Let's get it focused. Should go in just like so. Okay. And screw back in. Put this back on, and of course this whole thing really helps to keep these cool, because one thing about these drives, and I guess all computer components, is every time you make them smaller and faster, they run hotter. But this thing will also be right in the direction of the air cooler, so I'm not worried about it overheating. And put cold plate on like that. Alright. Okay, so why don't we get started with putting some thermal paste on. Actually, give this just one last quick little wipe down with a little bit of alcohol on my microfiber cloth, just to make sure that there's no fingerprints or specks of dust or anything like that that might get in the way of this making a good contact with the thermal paste and with the heatsink. Alright, so for the thermal paste, I'm just going to use what came with my Noctua cooler, so Noctua thermal paste. Nothing too fancy, although I do think I remember like a while back when I was looking at performance of different thermal paste that this was actually towards the top, so hopefully it is still the case, since like I said, this tends to run a little bit warm. Now obviously this is a much bigger CPU, so you're going to want a bit more thermal paste. I guess maybe there's a little bit of debate about the best way to apply thermal paste to Threadrippers, but I think that the way that AMD actually recommends is to do a 5-point method. So I'm going to do like a big spot right there on the Z. And I'm going to do, not quite in the corners, because obviously that's going to go over, but kind of just 5 or 4 points rather around the centerpiece. There you go, so that's probably enough. And let's plug this back up so we don't end up making a mess. And then this is our nice, actually I probably gotta raise this a little bit. This is the trouble with filming everything yourself, is you have to adjust your tripods and stuff yourself. Okay, so this is the heatsink for the Noctua fan. You can see their logo there. I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I just think that they make really good coolers that are also not super freaking loud. So that's why I always go to them for my CPU coolers and case fans. And I'm pretty sure it goes this way, yeah, because you've got these two are spread further apart and these two are closer together. And I'm not sure how good you can see, but 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where the heatsink mounts. Let's go ahead and lower this in. Okay. And then you also get this nice little Allen wrench that comes with it to tighten it up. And usually what I do for tightening up air coolers, actually, I should tighten this with my fingers first. That'd be a real smart move. Usually I try to just tighten up the opposite ends diagonally first. Do the same thing over here until it starts getting difficult. Okay, and then bring the Allen wrench to it. Nice and tight. It's a little bit tough to get the Allen wrench out of there. It likes to stay in. You gotta kind of like find the right angle to where it'll release. That one came up pretty easily. All right, and before we put fans on, let me actually put some RAM in this bad boy, because might be impossible actually to put some of the RAM slots in with the fans on, because they're going to stick out a bit. And I should probably put the storage in first, really. So that goes in this way. It's like a big old RAM stick. And then put these in. So this motherboard supports up to 256 gigabytes of RAM. Right now I'm just doing 128. Part of the reason why is I'm going to be using this for compiling. That's one of the other uses for this Threadripper. So more Gen 2 videos are going to be coming your way soon. And when you're compiling, at least different applications on Gen 2, I found that generally, if you're going to use pipes, you want to have 2 gigabytes of RAM for every thread. So 64 threads, 128 gigs of RAM. And maybe I'll max it out if I actually find a use case where I need more than 128 gigs of RAM, but I can't really think of a whole lot right now. So this goes in this way. I don't know, maybe I can create a giant RAM disk. I don't think I've ever used a RAM disk before. I remember back in the day watching a video of somebody who I think installed Skyrim or some other like crazy large video game to a RAM disk, and they were just showing how quickly it loaded. It's like instantly. It's you know, one of those first world problems where your game loads so quickly that you don't get to read the little tips and tricks that it shows you on the bottom screen. One thing I'm definitely interested in finding out is how quickly I can compile Firefox or maybe even Chromium with this, any really large program. Okay, let's get other 2 sticks out. Make sure these are all the way. These go in the opposite direction. Okay, and now we can put our fans on. So this one, that's a little bit more rounded off, is the proper fan that comes with it. And you've got these little clamps on the side, that's what holds it onto the heatsink. So you just go pretty much like this. So this thing barely has clearance of the RAM. You'll notice I didn't buy a super duper fancy RAM because, well, for one, I don't even think the Threadripper can handle RAM that's clocked super high. Like, I just got some 3600 megahertz RAM because based on my research, that's what I found is around the highest clock speed that it could handle. And even if I overclock the Threadripper, of course, I could overclock the RAM if I really wanted to. No RGB shit or any stuff like that. It's totally unnecessary. And I'll plug this in. Because it's gonna, like one of the things I really don't get about RGB, and I know I'm kind of ranting at this point, but this is gonna go under my desk. It's not gonna be on top of the desk, and I'm not gonna be looking at the case while I'm using it. Like, I'm gonna be looking at what's on my screen. I don't understand the purpose of trying to make your computer case look super cool. It's like when people put spinners on their car, but you can't even see the spinners yourself, you know? It's for other people. But this is even more ridiculous because you're not going to be picking up chicks with your desktop. Alright, so then this is kind of the ghetto nonsense I've got going on here. So this is technically a case fan. And just gonna put it on like this, and I know that the airflow is going in the same direction based on the arrows. And I'm gonna try to just put it up. My mounting brackets came off. It might be better to just line it up first. I can make sure this mounting bracket is straight. Okay. And pull that forward towards me, and then that forward towards me. There we go. So now we got 2 fans on there. There we go. Now they're both plugged in. I'm going to show you guys some of the I/O that I got here on this board before I turn it on. Apparently, it supports 10 gigabit Ethernet on board, which is very fun. It almost makes me want to try to upgrade my LAN to 10 gigabit. 2 different LAN connections, many USB ports, and of course there's no onboard HDMI or anything like that because, of course, this CPU does not have integrated graphics. Now, to power this monster, I've got this EVGA 1600 watt power supply, which is a lot. This is actually more watts than I think my microwave is able to produce. Part of the reason that I got this is because I'm going to use this rig for a long time. Like I said, the last one that I had, I literally built that when I was in high school, like 10 years ago. So I'm probably going to get another 10 years or more out of this one. I'm going to use probably multiple graphics cards. I think that this could support up to maybe up to 4, because I mean it's got 4 PCI Express slots, and I know that the Threadripper also supports an incredible amount of lanes. I want to say 100. I might not be right about that, but it supports a lot of PCIe lanes. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and power this bad boy on now that I got my hilariously small graphics card in place. I mean, look at this thing, it barely takes up the PCI slot. Well, it actually doesn't, it only takes up like half the PCI slot, but whatever, fan's spinning, so it definitely works. So yeah, this just gives you the different CPU, and now it's doing VGA, and hard drive, like gives you these different codes. I really like this display because I'm used to either having to deal with beeps, or you just get like a really simple code on the screen, and then you have to check the motherboard manual and try to figure out, okay, what component's messing up. And we get the Rogue Zenith 2 Extreme Alpha. Very, very cool. And then it displays the CPU temp for you right there too. So I think that's pretty cool too. Not sure how accurate it is. I hope that this is pretty accurate, because I know that the Threadripper is covered in all of these different sensors. But yeah, why don't we take a look at it on a NeoFetch screen and maybe an H-top screen as well. All right guys, so like I said, I pre-installed Linux Mint to this NVMe drive just to show it to you guys here. So let's minimize OBS, bring this up. Let's do a nice little NeoFetch here. Oh, it's so beautiful to see that AMD Ryzen Threadripper 3970X with 64 threads. And again, thank you guys so much for watching these videos, because that's the only reason that I'm able to build this new rig, since it's primarily going to be used for doing these kinds of videos. It's pretty tough rendering videos, especially 4K videos on my much older rig. It does something like 5 to maybe 10 frames a second in rendering if I'm lucky. Memory, we're using like 2 gigs because, you know, we're booted into Linux Mint, we're running OBS, but what? It's 2 gigs of 128 that we're using. And then, this is my favorite part. Look at all those threads! Oh, it is so nice. So I don't really have anything to benchmark it with right now. That'll probably come in a later video, so I'll just close this one out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, thanks so much for the support that you guys have given me over the years. The only reason I'm able to have this is because of you all. Like and comment to hack the algorithm. Peace out.